So, artificial intelligence is literally everywhere now, changing everything. But what happens when it goes wrong, when it breaks the law? Well, it turns out we're not starting from a completely blank slate. Let's dive into how these old, established laws are being stretched and applied to this brand new tech.
You hear this all the time, right? That AI is this new, unregulated frontier. It feels like a digital Wild West where there are no rules and anything goes. But is that really true?
Well, not exactly. You see, while governments around the world are scrambling to write new AI-specific laws, the main way AI is being governed right now is by using legal frameworks that have been on the books for years, sometimes decades. Let's kick things off with a huge one: intellectual property. All right, first up, AI and intellectual property. This is a biggie. AI models, especially the large language models, need absolutely massive amounts of data to learn. But a massive legal battle is brewing because a lot of that data, well, it's someone else's copyrighted work.
And the whole issue really starts with a process called data scraping. It's basically how AI developers get those giant data sets. They use automated bots to just pull incredible amounts of text, images, and code from all over the internet to feed their models.
Now, how do AI companies defend this? They almost always point to the fair use doctrine. They argue that just using copyrighted material to train an AI is a transformative use, which is allowed. But the courts are now starting to weigh in, and they're drawing a really important line in the sand. A recent Q ruling essentially said if you got the data legally, it might be fair use. If you used pirated data, not so much.
So for any company out there using or building AI, you have to understand this isn't just some abstract debate for lawyers. IP infringement is a massive business risk. We're talking about incredibly expensive lawsuits and some serious financial and legal trouble.
But the risks of AI go so much deeper than just copyright battles. The data that an AI is trained on can have profound, real-world consequences for people. And that's exactly why old-school anti-discrimination laws are now being used as a fairness test for these new AI systems.
And look at where this bias can hit. We're talking about things that can change the entire course of your life. Whether you get a job, a loan for a house, access to education, you name it. The stakes here are just incredibly high.
If you want a perfect and kind of scary example of this, just look at what happened with Amazon's recruiting AI a few years back. They trained it on 10 years of their own resumes, but that data was mostly from men. So what happened? The AI literally taught itself that men were better candidates, and it started automatically penalizing resumes that had words like women's on them. It got so bad Amazon couldn't fix it. They had to scrap the whole thing.
Okay, I want you to look at this number, just the number itself, 81%.
What is that? That was the error rate of a facial recognition system that the London police were actually using. An 81% failure rate. I mean, just think about that. This shows the terrifying real-world danger when biased or just plain broken AI gets deployed in something as critical as law enforcement. So, we've covered civil rights. Now let's pivot to consumer rights. Because those long-standing consumer protection laws, they're now being aimed squarely at the AI systems we interact with every single day to make sure they're being fair and, frankly, trustworthy. In the US, the big stick here is the FTC Act. It has this very broad rule against unfair or deceptive business practices. And the FTC has been shouting from the rooftops that they don't care if a human is being deceptive or if an algorithm is. It's all the same to them.
And this is where a very modern AI problem slams right into a very old law. You've probably heard of AI hallucinations. That's when an AI just confidently makes stuff up. Well, from a legal standpoint, if that made-up information misleads a customer, it can absolutely be considered a deceptive practice. Here's a simple example. Imagine you're talking to a company's customer service chatbot, and it straight up lies to you about the refund policy. That company can be held legally responsible for that lie. The key thing to remember is you can't just throw your hands up and say, "Oh, the bot did it." The buck still stops with the business.
Okay, but that brings us to an even trickier question. When a truly autonomous system, like a self-driving car or a medical AI, makes a mistake and causes real harm, who's to blame? Who pays?
So in the world of product liability, there are generally two paths. The first is fault liability, where the victim has to prove the company was negligent. That's really hard with a black box AI, because how can you prove what it was thinking? The other path is strict liability, where all you have to prove is that the product was defective and it hurt you.
That seems like a much better fit for AI, but the law is still playing catch-up.
And this all boils down to one critical, unanswered question, especially in the United States. Is a piece of software or an algorithm legally a product in the same way your car or your toaster is? How we answer that is going to shape the future of AI for years to come.
And there's a real split happening here globally. The European Union is already pushing ahead with new, clear rules for AI liability. Meanwhile, the US is more of a messy patchwork of different state laws and court cases, which creates a whole lot of uncertainty for everyone involved.
So, let's wrap this up. What are the big takeaways? First, intellectual property. Training AI on copyrighted data is a legal minefield, and fair use is the main battleground. Second, non-discrimination. Old civil rights laws are the primary weapon against biased AI. Third, consumer protection. If your AI lies, your company is on the hook. And finally, product liability. Figuring out who to blame when AI fails is probably the biggest legal mess we still have to sort out.
We've seen how all these old laws are being twisted and stretched to cover this powerful new technology. So the real question we have to ask ourselves is, as AI gets faster and more powerful, which of these old rules will be flexible enough to bend, and which ones are just going to break?